All right, we should be live. Welcome everyone to an Apokalupsis Historia live stream event. Welcome, good evening, wherever you are out there in the world. We've got here Brady tonight, as well as Chance with an Shake-Speare authorship entry. Okay, here to talk about something really juicy. Probably something mentioned in every single one of these books and one of these intro essays. They're gonna bring up part of the Shake-Speare biography, right? You're gonna hear him. What's he first called on the scene? The Upstart Crow, and we're here to contend tonight that he's not even it. Like he's not even the Upstart Crow. Like the most famous thing that anyone's been called in this Elizabethan era, as far as we can bother to care. So we're gonna talk about that tonight. But remember that we are a listener funded stream, and so make sure you check out all the links down below in the description. And I got some little visitors coming in here tonight because we're doing this we're doing this Bill O'Reilly style tonight as we're doing this live. And so check out the links down below if you want to come support us on Substack. Thank you to all of our YouTube channel members, all of our Substack subscribers, and Patreon supporters. We couldn't do this without you. Thanks to all our Discord gang and everyone in the book club. We couldn't do this without you. Thoroughly appreciate it. So and I want this to be, like I said, an entry. When I was looking at today, I'm still looking at our highest viewed videos, and there's still a good big jump between our highest viewed video and like the next highest one or whatever. So the highest viewed video is still the Henslow Diary video, right? Like, is that the key to Shakespeare authorship? And I think we've pretty much proven that it is indeed a key to Shakespeare authorship, right?
Yeah.
And and then the next one, I don't even remember what the next video is. Maybe it is the weird video. I honestly don't remember. But the point is that but the next highest tier ones up there are still handy. It's still the Francis Mears mentions and stuff like that. It's still the what was one of the other really good ones that's not other than handy. Jog my memory if you can, but I don't know. There's like some like really basic Shakespeare biography ones that are just good for like getting a primer into the scene itself, let alone questioning Shakespeare if he's the guy or not. It's just like these are just interesting things to know in of itself, and so. And but they are good things to question and be like, there's more going on in this scene, right? The Henslow Diary, you see all these play names, like there's more onto this scene that's going on, right?
Right. Looking at these documentary sources, right? Yeah. Like specifically.
Yeah. And Handy specifically to be topical because Ian McClellan just did the Handy, I guess, soliloquy or whatever, right? On the whatever talk show host, right? So and they still say that Shakespeare, We've sort of been like, hey, we're not really sure if that's Shakespeare. That doesn't really add up,
Right.
A couple Google searches, not searches links down, and you're not gonna, really, you're gonna see that, it's not so solid. The Handy is Shakespeare thing, and so once again, we've just covered these like sort of very basic facts of Shakespeare, and I think we've done a good job of maybe not always, are suggesting a candidate exactly, but definitely calling into question like how these so-called scholars come to the conclusions that find themselves into these little intro essays here or whatever, right?
Right.
And so this is one of these seminal Shakespeare cornerstone biography pieces that I feel like is very, very important to go into. And so how would you like to lead us off with this event?
Let me see. I haven't been on in a while, so I'm a little rusty, folks, so stick with me. But, first of all, shout out to book club members, Patreon supporters. Shout out to, as Mark Hazlitt says it, all you freeloaders out there. You're not freeloaders. You're supporting the cause in every which way you can. So thank you guys for watching. Let's talk about Upstart Crow, because like Brady's saying, it's one of these foundational pieces of Shakespearean biography. It is one of the cornerstones of the so-called Stratfordian hypothesis, I'll put it like that. And that's the idea that in 1592, Robert Greene, in a pamphlet called Greene's Groatswort's Wit, in a sort of end section to it, because most of it's these series of narratives. So it's about 25, 26 pages, something like that. And like 20-something of them are this long narrative. You got this tale about Roberto. You got these other characters. But after the tale is over, he has this little open letter to 3 of his co-writers, and he doesn't name them specifically, but he gives us hints enough.
Philip's commenting on the why you wanted the beard there, but
Orthodox
monk beard.
Real quick, I do want to say, Philip, I have not read that. I am super interested in that title. I would like to know more about that. The Shake-Speare Wars, and the beard. Everybody thinks that there's some like agenda behind the beard, but I was joking to myself. It's like the scene in Forrest Gump, like. And one day I just felt like not shaving, and I just kept not shaving, and then one day I found myself on the other side of the country not shaving, and I decided to go back to the other end. So I just kind of quit shaving, and it makes me look all wise, and it gives me the sense of authority. But really, I was going for something grand and magisterial, but it's every day looking more and more like I'm the 4th member of the Soggy Bottom Boys from Oh Brother Where Art Thou. So we'll see how much longer I stick with it, but maybe a little homage to the great John Michael Greer. Maybe some shout outs to Falstaff or Dumbledore or Gandalf or something like that too. I don't know, or Socrates, or all those Greeks. But yeah, legit question. All right, back to Upstart Crow. Green Groatsworth's Wit comes out in 1592. Like I said, most of it is this narrative. At the very end, he has this other little tiny narrative where he retells you Aesop's tale of the lazy grasshopper. But in between those two, he has this little open letter to his co-writers. And like I said, he doesn't name them by name, but he gives us hints to the point where we kind of know who he's talking to. And this little letter goes along with the theme of these two narratives, which is basically like, one, in a moralistic, almost Puritan sense, don't be some prodigal wastrel, if you get talent, use it. But on this other sort of practical, worldly level, be aware that there's people trying to screw you, and be aware that, if you're using a gift, use it for good, but, be wise, be worldly, be smart about it, because there will be people trying to, use those gifts for their own sake. And specifically in this, it's, your gift is playwriting. And there's this, in the open letter, there's this big kind of warning to say, don't trust actors. Actors at some point are going to get more famous than you off of your lines. Really don't trust actors if they start acting like those are their lines, or if that they want to put their lines on top of your lines in the middle of your play that you worked hard to write. Or even worse, if one of those actors decides that he can start stealing your lines and paste them together to make his own play. That is what Green is leveling at this Upstart Crow. We'll go over it in detail to show you that that's what's happening. And for the most part, when people first started looking at this, all the way back in the 1700s, that was the take. And that was the take up until pretty recently. That we have an actor that's a wannabe playwright that is stealing lines from people like Green, Peele, Marlowe, Nash, possibly others. And in doing that, stealing those lines, adding his own lines to their plays, is acting like he is as good or talented or gifted as any of you. And what's worse is that guy is going and making a ton more money. He's way more famous than you will ever be because he's an actor and you're just a writer. And let's be honest. Let's be completely honest. Is Green not 100 billion% right? Fast forward to now. Name a movie writer from a recent movie, and then name a movie actor from a recent movie. Which one's harder to do? You can name 1,000 actors from now. You can maybe name a handful of writers. And that goes for pretty much any era of film, any era of television, right? The same was happening in their time, and it was happening in very real time because this is the first time that can happen, because it's the first time we have, in the English-speaking world, a commercial theater, a commercial stage, anything that could have commercial acting performances. And as such, this immediately happens, and Green levels this accusation in this pamphlet. And, a lot of people have said, hey, that fits Shakespeare. I think that fits Shakespeare. He must be leveling this at Shakespeare. And everybody's kind of taken that at face value for several reasons, which we'll get into. And from that's become this sort of commonplace assumption. And that's been, taken at total face value that, yes, Green is totally leveling a giant accusation at the upcoming young Shakespeare. But I'm here to tell you that totally is, one, silly, because when we look at the actual text, that at every level that doesn't make sense. Two, it actually has completely warped our view of the entire era. That this one little stupid mistake has completely warped our entire understanding of not just Shakespeare, but all of Elizabethan literature, the Elizabethan history of theater, of the stage. And that's entirely, completely, wholly problematic, and that, we have to tear down this wall, Mr. Gorbachev, because this is upholding a giant house of cards. Because before I even dive into this, I want to point out just some peculiarities that I notice about the Orthodox stance on the Shakespeare canon. Okay, first of all, up until the early 20th century, when we started getting the big bad disintegrators, it was taken at face value that all of the Shakespeare folio is by it's all Shakespeare, right? It's all written by that guy. That was the face value take. And then even more than just the folio, any other plays that said by Shakespeare and didn't say by Shakespeare and somebody else, it's well, yeah, that was Shakespeare. And that was the prevailing paradigm until literally 100 years ago. And 100 years ago, some little sharper folks like J.M. Robertson and John Dover Wilson and others just started noticing that there's parts of plays that just stand out from other plays. And specifically, some of these early plays like Henry VI, any part of those, Henry VI Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, any of those, they don't look like pure Shakespeare. And in fact, they look a whole bunch like these other plays called, The Contention Between the House of York and Lancaster, or The True Tragedy of the Duke of York, True Tragedy of Richard, Duke of York, right? And it's okay, maybe these are non-Shakespeare pieces. And in the sense that maybe they're not wholly Shakespeare. And so people started tossing around the idea that plays like those, Titus, might have other authors in it, and that this is Shakespeare's early years. He can't just up and out of nowhere just start writing all of his own plays, right? And then, people have also realized, there's some John Fletcher plays that have Shakespeare all over them, right? And so the disintegrators started allowing people to look at Shakespeare as a collaborator, which, still to this day, some people are against. Even some of you doubters out there that watch us, you want to say that this is all a cohesive mind, all a cohesive work, and hey, that's up for debate. But sticking to this point, these guys, these early disintegrators, they allowed it, which is a good thing, but did you notice what they did? They only disintegrated the very start of Shakespeare and the very end of Shakespeare. Anything in between is still pure Shakespeare. And
questionable, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a video for another day, because they'll say Middleton's in Macbeth, Middleton's in Timon, maybe
conveniently the ones that we don't have quartos for or anything.
Right, and then they'll say, but Middleton's just a later interpolation. He's not an actual on the ground co-writer during the time, right? That's not really what's happening. He's finishing out stuff. He's adding stuff. And so they keep middle Shakespeare pure, and that's entirely too convenient for me, and it's entirely too inconvenient that right at those peak era, there's plays that just don't look like Shakespeare and look more like all those other writers that he probably should be collaborating with, like Dekker or Drayton or Chettle, etc. Like, for instance, Mary Wise of Windsor. But like I said, that's another video. Tonight's video, we're sticking to Upstart Crow, so we will be talking a lot about the Henry VI plays, because that is one of the things that people use to spot Shakespeare as the Upstart Crow. Because when Green is leveling this accusation, he uses a line from Henry VI Part 3. Tiger's heart wrapped in a player's hide. Which, in the play, it's Tiger's heart wrapped in a woman's hide. And so everybody's like, this is pointed at Shakespeare. That's a Shakespeare play. But we're going to get into it and show you why this is not so simple. So, if you want, Brady, you can take us to the... there you go. Yep.
And I have, like I said, like my basic Signet Classic here that you would, if you stroll into any used bookstore, this might, if your introduction to Shakespeare until all this gets overturned. I don't even know when these are printed exactly. I thought these are maybe edited in like the 60s. I don't know if this is actually from the 60s. I could be wrong. But anyways, like I said, they always have these pre-essays and a lot of these Shakespeare things you'll get anyway. And right here at the front, they've got the whole Shakespeare and overview. And they talk about, 1592, thanks to the cantankerousness of Robert Greene, we have our first reference.
Let's throw him under the bus.
A snarling one to Shakespeare as an actor and playwright.
Ooh.
And so, once again, just, our topic is here, right? We're really writing history here, folks.
So
right?
much spin, man. So much narrative. So much twist. So much mood evoked by Sylvan Barnett, editor of the Signet Classics. Ooh. No, it's narrative. It's bullcrap. It's silly. Let's get into it. Brady got me all fired up. I was gonna go all neutral and be like, we can all be open-minded about this. Like, to hell with that. Okay, Shakespeare is not the Upstart Crow. So, I want to read a little section from an essay by Hans Peter Born, and this is his essay, Why Greene Was Angry at Shakespeare. So, when it comes to interpreting the meaning of the elusive allusion in Groatsworth, commentators can roughly be divided into two camps. There are those who believe that by calling Shakespeare, quote, an upstart crow beautified with our feathers, end quote, Robert Greene accuses him of plagiarism. Which, like I said, that was the prevailing paradigm for like hundreds of years. Now, others think that the attack is directed at the insolence of the uneducated actor who has the presumption of writing plays. What a douchebag. Shakespeare is either charged with plagiarism or with social climbing. Although the plagiarism theory first presented by Malone, that's the great Edmund Malone, the godfather of all Shakespeare studies, and later taken up by John Dover Wilson, seemed to have been refuted by Peter Alexander. That would have been 1920s, 30s. It has again found favor among recent biographers. Okay, so, like I said, the prevailing paradigm was plagiarism. Peter Alexander first tried to call that into question because he said, well, that doesn't make any sense. These guys copy from each other all the time. If we're calling Shakespeare a plagiarist this early, when we see him borrowing later, do you know how problematic that is? We don't get to call him the greatest ever. We have to call him a thief. And who wants to do that? So let's rethink this. Really, it's these elitists, these mean rich kid, college, super educated, hoity-toity, Robert Greene, Thomas Nash. Those types, they just look down on people like Shakespeare, who's a genuine country man, who's got a heart of gold, and he comes to London to save America. God
bless.
God, thank you, God, for Shakespeare. So, you see the problem, right? Let's be honest. Robert Greene never made a 12th of a 10th of a 10th of what Shakespeare made in his life, right? Shakespeare made a lot of money. Robert Greene was destitute and broken, moving between loans and patrons his whole life, till he just died of sadness and poorness.
Yeah, man.
Thomas Nash is like an even more famous version of that story. So it's not a money class thing, it's a we're educated thing. But like, let's talk about that. Who's the prevailing dramatist of the time at that time? What is the tragedy? Even more than Tamburlaine or Faustus? It's the Spanish tragedy, right? The Great Spanish Tragedy. The same guy who probably wrote that also wrote a little play called Hamlet. Maybe you fucking heard of it? Yeah, we call it the Hamlet to make it sound fancier, but it's Hamlet, you know. We don't know because we don't have it, but Nash said as much. Kid wrote Hamlet. And none of us are talking about Kid. Kid never went to college. Why isn't Robert Greene like, oh yeah, and you're just as bad as Kid, William Shakespeare? Never mentions that, doesn't say that. There's nothing about that. Because you know why? Like, it's not a complaint. It's not a real complaint. You know how many other playwrights did not go to college? A lot of them. So that's Shakespeare in isolation. That's bullshit. So and, it's either plagiarism or broke.
And just to show you some portraits, right? You know, we know who this is, right? We all know who that is, right?
Yep.
That's what you're arguing.
Yep.
And we were talking about the poor, you know, the poor kids, you know, the kids who, you know, are getting the hand-me-downs, you know, like we got Thomas Nash, and you know, he's like in shackles or something, you know, he's like bound to his wall. What's he holding here, like a pen? And then the other guy we're talking about tonight mainly, this poor fellow, like this is even worse. Like, what is? He's wearing a sack.
So those guys,
Diogenes stuff. He's wearing a potato sack.
Are saying that the other guy with the Da Vinci portrait, he's the presumptive one. Okay. Tough sell, guys.
Yeah, this is the presumptive one.
Okay.
This is the best we got of this guy.
Okay. All right. Fine.
And like, this fella.
That's a little insane.
I went to college. Napoleon Dynamite looking fella.
And all I got was this jacket and these shackles. That's what it says on the back of the jacket. But no. Already we're already in silly town because this is getting a little weird. So presumption's stupid, right? Like, we can toss that out. It makes no sense. It's a weird, bizarre claim that was never made before or again. It's not presumption that a successful playwright and you know, proven playwright could be not from college. Like, that's not what the complaint is here, because by the time this is being leveled, Shakespeare's supposed to have like, what, 5 plays out? Maybe 6. We got
when this Green
we got
out.
You know, they say 2 Gentlemen of Verona.
Thomas Kidd doesn't even have a goofy drawing, by the way.
No. Thomas Kidd's a ghost.
He's got the Hamlet mention. Thomas Kidd Hamlet mentioned on his wiki, but yeah, he doesn't even get like a Sunday cartoon drawing of him.
No. Well, there was a beautiful Da Vinci painting on the cover of the original Hamlet. It just got lost. So. Joking.
1592 is when Green Goatsworth.
Yeah, Green Goatsworth.
How many plays is he supposed to have by then?
Huh?
Shakespeare has that many plays by 1592?
So Shakespeare has 2 Gentlemen of Verona by 92. He has probably Taming of the Shrew, Taming of a Shrew. That's what they like to date. He's got the 3 Henry plays.
How about Thy Shrew?
Taming of thy shrew, thou shrew, thine, yeah. Taming of thine shrew. William Henry Ireland's ghost is like, I like that. All right, some of y'all get that joke. Okay, so at least 5 plays, right? Maybe he's already working on Titus. Who knows? Because I don't think I like the idea of dating Titus after Richard III, right? Nobody wants to say that. I don't. I sure as heck don't. So, yeah, Robert Greene's like, you established author, you quit acting like you can steal our line. Like, it doesn't. It's not computing for me. That's not an upstart, at least, you know. Like, an upstart, somebody who just starts doing something. This is somebody who's been working in the theater for 2-3 years here. And so yeah, we got Chambers chronology, but yeah, if you scroll down beyond Chambers, because Chambers is outdated and 100 years old. What's their little wiki one? We got the art in Shakespeare giving
this stuff right here.
Yeah. So
Okay,
what?
so
two gentlemen taming, and just count them till you hit Henry VI Part 1. Okay. Well, I mean, they didn't order this correctly because very few people date Henry VI Part 1 before Part 2 or Part 3, which is a whole can of worms, and we're gonna get into that.
Yeah, you can see because look at the entry for Part 2 has got a lot longer.
Yeah,
it's weird.
But okay, Titus also 91 to 92. Richard III's 92, so possibly even Richard III. So Edward III, like guys, we got like 7-8 plays.
We have all these weird 92 to 93 and 92 to 93, and then there's like a weird jump to 94. Like, I don't do 93 to 94.
And none of these,
I don't know.
Like none of these are securely dated.
Yeah, this is wiki, so yeah, no grain, multiple spoons and grains and heaps of salt.
Right.
But just for layperson's understanding of things.
Correct.
They do have some links. Sometimes I've shown that, hey, actually, this link actually is pretty good. Some articles are better than others. So,
right.
Just read it yourself.
So, this is already not making sense, but let us continue. Let us see what Hans Peter has to continue saying. Oh, you good? Okay. Peter Ackroyd writes, quote, accused of being an unlearned upstart plagiarist, Shakespeare would have questioned unlearned, but he could have hardly denied the charge of plagiarism. His early plays were bedecked. I like that word, bedecked. Like
Deckard.
Yeah, it's like there was a decker that decked him. I like that. His early plays were bedecked with lines and echoes from Marlowe. Wow. It's almost like there's a playwright decking plays with lines from Marlowe because he's a giant Marlowe and Nash fan.
Sounds like someone also has made some connections between these fellows before.
It's evading me. It's just totally escaping me. I don't know what you're talking about. You're a psychopath. You're paranoid. All right. David Bevington also thinks that, quote, that Green seems to have despised Shakespeare as an unprincipled plagiarist. Did Green, who himself is a shameless pilferer of other writers' plots and phrases, really accuse Shakespeare of plagiarism? Was plagiarism for early modern authors even a serious issue? One might doubt it. Sir Jonathan Bate is among those who believe that Green's attack was prompted by envy and his disdain for social climbing. Alright.
Plus, y'all, hey, wait, hold on. Chance, put your hat back on. They didn't see it. There you go. Now do it again.
Alright, thank you. Dramatic hat. Decapitation, that's the word. Okay, Jonathan Bate would know a whole lot about looking down on other people. So he may have some expertise here. I'm gonna be honest on this one, guys. Like, he may have me by the balls here. Okay? Nobody looks down on the world more than Sir Jonathan Bate. I'm gonna tell you that right now. This whole social climbing narrative, he picked it up rather late in his career, I want to say, as he does with a lot of his ideas. And he wants to really push that Shakespeare is this unique entity, that he is this country bumpkin who didn't go to college and is trying to start writing plays, and he has the nerve to try to act like he's as learned as the rest of these guys. Even though, Thomas Dekker, no blink or wink of university, he should be starting to write, maybe not by 92, but by 93 or 94. That's not crazy. It's still not clear what Ben Johnson's full relationship is to the university. Nobody really ever gets uppity about that. He's the learnest guy that ever learned, and he's a bricklayer's son, right? Nobody ever was like, Johnson, I mean, yeah, Decker made fun of him, and he's like, Johnson, you're a bricklayer's son, but that was really just a kick in the nuts. That wasn't an actual complaint. Like I said, Thomas Kidd, I don't really need to rehash this, but another one that would definitely be possibly writing, I know that sounds silly, but it's not crazy at all to say that Michael Drayton is writing drama in the early 90s, and that Michael Drayton could have a hand in drama by 92. Michael Drayton did not go to college, as far as we can tell. People have dug and dug, because people said he went to college, and then people dug into it, and it's like, actually, there's absolutely no record of him going to college. We don't know when he would have gone to college, but Michael Drayton's about as learned as you get to, right? So don't really know what Bate is talking about here. I don't know why we're putting Shake-Speare in this isolated pedestal. I don't know why Green would lay this accusation. Maybe if Green lived longer than he did, he would have leveled it against people like Drayton and Decker and stuff. Blah blah blah. Maybe Jonathan Bate would say that. But Jonathan Bate says, quote, English culture has a long history of men from the professions armed with degrees from the universities of the prestige, divine, beautiful Oxford University and the other poopy Cambridge University, looking down their noses like I do every day. At hard-working men, I totally look down on people like Brady and Chance, from a trade background, who lack a degree. Which the Elizabethan age allowed you to call yourself a gentleman. Green Groatsworth's wit goes on to call Shake Scene a rude groom and a peasant. This is the snobbery of the town sophisticate towards the country bumpkin, as well as the professional towards the reader. Although Green took pride in his university degrees and may have considered himself more learned than the grammar school boy Shake-Speare, the explanation offered by Bate is as unsatisfactory as anything on the planet, including the plagiarism theory, right? Okay. So, Green's background, his father was a saddler, perhaps a cordwainer turned innkeeper in Norwich, was similar to the Glover's son from Stratford. His traditionalist values are as rooted in the English counties as Shakespeare's. In a quip for an upstart courtier, he lets a jury give preference to cloth breeches over velvet breeches, to lowliness over pride, and in Friar Bacon and Friar Bungay, maybe his best play, he lauds the sane country virtues of a humble gamekeeper and his daughter.
I just mentioned that play in the Batman stream, actually. So
super shout out. Yeah, that play's super cool. So anybody that's struggling with the Oxfordian theory, go check out more Robert Greene. That may open up some doors for you. Anybody in the Oxfordian theory, guys, please start talking about Robert Greene more. There's been a lot of Nash talk, and yes, Nash is hot, and Nash has connections to Oxford, and I love it. But Robert Greene's a legit candidate for, being the hand of Edward de Vere, and Bob Prechter. Yeah, we all kind of crapped on him for all of his other stuff, but maybe the Robert Greene actually had some stuff, and we should have listened to him a little bit.
Chances we all crapped on him.
Yeah, nobody crapped on Bob more than I did. But
the crapping.
Robert Greene is closer to the poetry that we see from Edward de Vere, and that you're going to have to develop the poetry of Edward de Vere into Shakespeare somehow, and Robert Greene's going to be the closest thing you have to anything like a stepping stone that matches between the two. And so, yeah, just more Robert Greene. But going back to it, I'm not sitting here saying that Robert Greene is Edward de Vere. That's a whole mare's nest that anybody's welcome to look into. I'm of the belief pretty much that Robert Greene is Robert Greene. But there's so much wackiness and weirdness to Robert Greene. So, there is as yet no wholly convincing explanation for the, quote, oblique and cryptic attack on Shakespeare. Commentators tend to concentrate on the upstart crow jibe and rather neglect the other charges in the passage, wouldn't you know? Why did Greene accuse Shakespeare of having a tiger's heart? And what about Greene's claim that Shakespeare, being an absolute Johannes factotum, is in his own conceit the only shake scene in a country? Even the imaginative A.L. Rouse, quote, who, it must be said, never allowed an absence of certainty to get in the way of a conclusion, was baffled. He surmised that, quote, there must have been something personal behind them, some acute disappointment to account for the malice. But what was it? What happened between them? What indeed? We don't know. But we can, once again, make an attempt to find out. And so, the ironic punchline to this is that Hans-Peter Born just says that it's Shakespeare, and he speculates a bunch of wild nonsense to make that work and make that fit, and he has to do all sorts of wacky stuff with the dating that nobody agrees to. But everything Hans brings up is absolutely spot on. Plagiarism doesn't make sense. Not with the way that it's given, right? Presumption doesn't really quite make sense. Not with the way that it's given, and not with what we see from the rest of Shakespeare's career. None of these accusations are ever leveled again. You know, people in this doubter scene have tried to say, yes, they were. Poet Ape was leveled against them too. Like, old Knucklehead McCarthy with his North nonsense. He wants to say, yes, it's a sneeving, conniving, sneaking Shake-Speare on the scene, and he's just taken, you know, from the holy tomb of North. He's taken these works, and then he's garbling them and then getting them printed under his name. Yeah, he's the upstart crow. He's the Poet Ape. You know, unless you're insane and you know you buy into any of the North nonsense, none of that really makes any sense and doesn't really do anything for explaining any of the other history of the theater. It doesn't do anything for explaining the Apocrypha, despite what Knucklehead says. It's not really answering any questions.
No one on the internet No one on YouTube has done more reading of Virginalia and Moralia and all those like crazy wacky things that have to do with Labio and Poet Ape and all that stuff, right? No one here on YouTube has covered more of that stuff, and multiple videos of the Thomas Dekker and the Labio stuff and all that good, and yeah, having to read multiple pages of like thine this and thine that and all this crazy like spelling. Or
yeah, the satires are an absolute. Just don't do them. It's quicksand. It's a trap. It's a vortex. You will never come back out of the rabbit hole. Yeah, John Marston, Joseph Hall.
Once you stare into the rabbit hole stares into you.
Yeah, so yeah, like you become the rabbit hole. You are the white rabbit. But yeah, like to steer it back, and maybe use a little less histrionics and rhetoric. This whole idea that it Shakespeare's broken plays, that's not accepted by the Orthodox, so that won't explain it. That may explain it in Dennis's cockamamie theory, but it won't explain it for the Orthodox. So what can the Orthodox say to continue to uphold Upstart Crow other than, these unsatisfactory theories? Well, the way to do it is to hand wave it away and not need to explain it, and just have a wiki page that says, "Oh, presumption or plagiarism or whatever." Fuck
Most
you.
likely,
right? It doesn't matter. It's Shakespeare. It's a given fact. It's a rote religious fact at this point. You know, Jesus died on the cross, and Shakespeare was the upstart crow. Happy Lent, everybody. Okay, so I want to put in another candidate, and I'm not original in this. I'm definitely going off of what a lot of Shakespeare doubters, and maybe there's some even Orthodox folks out there saying this, but the upstart crow is not Shakespeare. It is the big-time actor, actual play broker, actual impresario, Edward Allen. And Green has leveled these accusations at Edward Allen before, and almost in the exact same way. Not as explicit, not as extensive, but the same accusations, that you are literally a crow beautifying your feathers because you are an actor and you are beautifying your feathers with other people's writings. And it's a personal jibe at Edward Allen because Edward Allen is supposed to be the peacock, because he is Edward Allein. An all-line is a pun on all eyes, like the peacock's tail. It's an infinite amount of eyes. It's all, bless you, it's all eyes, right? And because he is not the peacock, he is the crow, that is the joke. And I don't know why Dennis hasn't gotten that joke. He must not have a decent sense of humor. Orthodox people have to ignore that, right? Edward Allen is the upstart crow because he is the one leading acting in these plays. And at this time, you would have the Burbages with Edward Allen for some of these plays. And so that would include all of them. And I wish I could have been there to see that. That would have been cool. But when Edward Allen's doing this, he's trying to steal the scene. He's trying to steal the spotlight. He is trying to be the best actor out there. But his version of acting is just get out there and bluster and bombast. And when he's doing it, he even gets so caught up in his own bombast that he wants to ad-lib his own bombast into there. And he's getting so cocky about this that he is actually trying to get plays done on his own. Maybe he's writing it. Maybe he's paying people to write it. But at some point, plays like Tamarcam and An Act to Know a Knave are probably Edward Allen plays. And those are literally straight up stealing from... Who are they stealing from? Green, Peele, Marlowe, Nash. Where do those names pop up? Oh, they're the names that are, in the Green Groatswords with Passage, right? And so, let me see. Take us back to the scroller.
Which part do you want?
Yeah, you can just go from there.
Right here?
Yeah, that's fine. And then, just scroll. My bad. A little down. Okay, so, like I was saying, the line in question, Tiger's Heart, comes from Shakespeare, right? No, actually, it doesn't come from Shakespeare. It comes from a play that predates, not Shakespeare itself, but it predates having the name Shakespeare on it. And it even predates the title that we call it. The title, Henry VI Part 3, is not on there until the folio in 1623, even though this play is supposed to be from 1592. Shakespeare's name is not attached to the play until 1619, and that's with Thomas Pavier and William Jaggard's False Folio, which has a bunch of other plays that aren't by Shakespeare called Shakespeare in them. Maybe not a bunch, but several others. So, why would we assume that this play that has this line in Shakespeare, or even the line that is in Shakespeare, why would we assume that must be by Shakespeare? Okay, well, this ultimately is going to get pretty hairy because I think pretty heavily that Henry VI Part 3 is not Shakespeare, in the sense that most of that play is probably written by these four authors that we're talking about. And that at some point, this line, Tiger's Heart, is either Green's line himself or one of these three other guys' lines. That's why he is making the complaint. That's why he's using that line, because Edward Allen would have said that line. Like any famous line from a movie now, you associate it with an actor, you don't associate it with a writer, right? Like, hasta la vista, baby. No, you're not like, oh, that's the dude that wrote Terminator. You're like, no, that's Schwarzenegger, right? The same thing would have been at the time, right? That's not some modernist revision. That's a universal fact. So, continuing. It's not just this play. There are several other plays that are in this pre-Shakespearean, quasi-Shakespearean state. We have Henry the Sixth Part 2, which is printed as the first part of the contention between the two famous houses of Lancaster and York. And then that play and the True Tragedy of Duke of York get printed as the whole contention, and that's what gets printed in the Pavier False Folio. And like I said, it's not until we get the actual Shakespeare folio in 1623 that it gets printed as Shakespeare as the title that we see it as, Henry VI Part 3. But all those iterations, whether you think that early one's a bad quarto or a pre-Shakespeare version, all those iterations have the line in question. right? Let's see. Go ahead, scroll down, Brady. And so I'm just wondering, there are other plays that we do see early versions of that we don't call Shakespeare. Like, we know Shakespeare wrote King John, but we don't say that the Troublesome Reign of King John is an early version of a Shakespeare play. Like, we don't say that that's a bad quarto of a Shakespeare play. We don't say that that's an unrevised version of a Shakespeare play. We say that that's a Peele play. We do the same thing for the proposed Hamlet, like I was bringing up. We don't say, oh, Shakespeare came to town in 89 and he wrote that, and then he reworked it into the later version of Hamlet. We don't say that. We say Kyd wrote it, right? We do this for several plays. King Lear. We don't think that Shakespeare wrote the King Lear spelled Leir, but we do. He wrote the Great Lear, Lear, right? But why don't we do this with Henry VI, Part 1, or Part 2, or Part 3, especially Part 3, since that's the one in question? Because we do sort of do that with Henry VI, Part 1. We start to disintegrate it. We say, oh, that is actually by Nash, maybe Green, or maybe Kyd, maybe Lodge, someone like that, right? But Henry VI, Part 3, we don't do that. Except, oh wait, no, we do now. In 2017, the Arden Shakespeare edition said Marlowe is totally a co-writer here. So think about that implication for a second. We have Green saying, Marlowe, you better watch out. This guy Shakespeare's going to steal your lines. And I'm going to steal a line from Shakespeare to complain about him stealing a line from you. And I'm going to quote a line in a play that you wrote with him. Does any of that make any sense? No, it makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. So, what would make sense? Well, if Edward Allen, the actor who is gaining all this fame and money from being an actor, is starting out of nowhere to put out plays like An Act to Know a Knave, which steals from Green wholly, or Tambercam, which steals from all four of them, literally just a knockoff of a Marlowe play. If he's writing those around 92, wouldn't that be the accusation? So let's see. Is he writing those around 92, Brady?
Yeah. Is that right? He played the title roles of Christopher Marlowe's three major plays, Dr. Faustus, Tamburlaine, and Barabbas. Huh. Really?
Yep. So he was the guy. But he wasn't trying to write plays in the late 80s. It wasn't until the early 90s that he may have started to write plays. And so, we get Tambercam, which is a total knockoff of Tamburlaine. And when does it come out? Oh, it comes out right at the same time as Henry VI. Oh, that's weird. What about An Act to Know a Knave? Oh, it's exactly coming out when Henry VI is coming out. So, all of a sudden, it's like, this is all making sense. It's all adding up. We don't have to keep digging. We don't have to go any farther.
So yeah, it just looking at all the different once again, yeah, like you were sort of pointing out, like the implications of just reading the full passage of who's actually in question, right? Because you talked about Nash and Marlowe and Peele, and them saying like, watch out, for someone coming to steal your plays, right? This Shakespeare guy's coming to steal your plays, and then then there's still a bunch of like collaboration evidence all over the place, and so all right, then your Green Groatsworth didn't work, I guess. Then, right? Like
total failure.
Are we even gonna find like even more Green stuff and Shakespeare stuff too? Unless that's the stuff that's being stolen, I guess, right? But like,
right.
Are we still even gonna find more of that stuff even later on too?
Right,
to even
right.
undercut it even some more. So either the Shakespeare is not who you think it is, or you gotta come up with a different candidate. So.
But and I would like to come back with this with a more detailed video that actually goes through it line by line. But I don't know. We've been going for almost an hour here, so I'll probably wrap it up here. But just know that look, Allen makes way more sense. Go look into Allen. Green's already accusing Allen. Allen's associated with plays that are stealing from Green, Marlowe, and Peele, that are coming out right at the same time as Henry VI. Shakespeare has no association with these plays for another few decades. That's it.
Yep. And yeah, we've got some more entries here from all the Henslow diaries to kind of show all the dates kind of lining up here, right? But yeah, you can kind of go on the Folgers website or just type in like Nactino Knave and some of these other entries here. And yeah, just kind of showing, once again that, once again, if he's starring in Jewel of Malta, and he might be, trying to, write some of his own coattails, and like you said, re-employ some of them say lines, or maybe if whole scenes are easily reproducible or something like that, then you can kind of just spit them out there, and it's like the DVD bins that you find at Walmart, right? Like, hey, you're just filling space, hey, I'm just trying to make a quick buck too, that's how it goes. And so it's fair game, I guess, in that sense. So but like I said, we'll probably have a fuller video on more of this information, more of a streamlined one. But just want to see if anyone wanted to hop on and argue real time, just in case they've read all of Green's Grotworth wits, and
right.
Let alone if they've even heard of this thing, looking beyond the pages of your basic Shakespeare overview intro, right? So, but is there anything else you want to close out with, or should we leave them here?
I guess we can leave it here. And like I said, guys, hope to have a fuller recorded video going through this piece by piece. But otherwise, don't buy into the narrative. Go look at this stuff for yourself. It's all open-ended. We don't know how much Shakespeare there is or isn't. And we got to start taking that a little more seriously.
Yeah. All right, guys. Check out all the links down below in the description. Thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight. Catch you all on the next Wednesday stream or the next live stream. Check out for any uploads. And as always, nullius in verba. Read Green Goats for yourself. All right, everyone. Have a good one.